Right, so this is an assignment on fatigue and recovery. So first of all, we're going to talk about fatigue. So fatigue involves the exhaustion of muscle from prolonged exertion or overstimulation. And that was written by Adams et al. 2010, page 47. So therefore fatigue is mental or physical prolonged tiredness because of exercise. So some of the symptoms may include increase within lactic acid, lactate levels within the body, electrolyte loss, loss of fluids, depletion of energy sources such as glycogen stores. The depletion of all of these, or how much these decrease, will depend on the intensity and the activity taking place. So first of all, when we exercise, oxygen levels within our body will deplete over time. This is because the body will use this oxygen for energy in order to provide muscular contraction. Low blood oxygen levels mean that the body is becoming to this stage where oxygen isn't readily available for the body in order for energy production. This can be known as hypoxemia. Low blood levels are classified low when less than 80 millimeters of mercury. Low blood cells means that cells can't function properly, along with muscular contraction not being so efficient. The body therefore becomes tired and fatigued due to these low oxygen levels. Many of the effects of hypoxemia may be due to an increase in breathing rate, in which the body cannot keep up with the demands of oxygen needed by the body. Another example of where oxygen levels would deplete over a long period of time during their performance would be a marathon runner. So over a long period of time, when marathon runners obviously run, their breathing rate increases, and therefore the demands for oxygen within the body increase to keep up with the oxygen needed in order to provide efficient contraction. Oxygen therefore is used up within the body and oxygen levels will deplete. Then we go on to talking about carbon dioxide. So due to exercise, demands for oxygen within the body increasing, oxygen is then brought into the body as breathing rate increases, obviously to keep up with these demands. So then oxygen is used for energy production, whilst carbon dioxide is produced within the body as a waste product. So as oxygen is brought in, then this carbon dioxide builds up as a byproduct of this. So carbon dioxide is normally exhaled out of the body in order to get rid of it. As we exercise, the amount of carbon dioxide within the body will increase. This is obviously because we're obviously bringing more oxygen into the body, therefore it's going to increase. As a result of this, the pH levels within the body will increase, and this makes the blood more acidic. The body works best at around a pH of 7, therefore this increase of pH will affect the cells and mean that they can't function as well properly. Also, if we don't disregard of this unwanted product within the body, then this means we have less space to bring the oxygen into the body. And if we can't supply the body with oxygen, then it will start to fatigue. An example of where carbon dioxide levels would occur and be very high would be a cyclist participating within the Tour de France. So over a long period of time, the body needs more oxygen in order to provide energy for muscular contraction. Therefore, more oxygen will be brought into the body, and therefore carbon dioxide levels will increase within the cyclist's body as a byproduct. So during aerobic exercise, the muscles also rely on ATP, known as adenosine triphosphate, as an energy source in order to perform successfully and efficiently. However, when performing at a high intensity, the body will take an anaerobic pathway, in which this consists of very limited ATP. This is because ATP takes time to rebuild, in which when you're working anaerobically, you don't have this time to rebuild ATP. So if ATP is limited, this means the body can therefore not produce as much energy, and therefore performance will drop. It will use the ATP-PC system if exercise is done for around 10 seconds when working anaerobically. An example of where ATP stores would decrease would be during a 100-metre sprint. So the athlete would be performing at a very high intensity, in which the body would go into an anaerobic state, relying on the ATP/P system for energy production. ATP therefore will be very limited due to it being used up. So acetylcholinesterase is the enzyme that terminates neurotransmission by hydrolyzing the acetylcholine released by the motor neurons at the neuromuscular junctions. When we exercise, stimulation of our nervous system will occur in response to the body working harder. Heart rate will increase, inhibiting the release of acetylcholine. As exercise is prolonged, heart rate will increase further and more acetylcholine will be released and used within the Krebs cycle. Therefore, acetylcholine will decrease. Due to acetylcholine decreasing, the transmissions of signals will be much slower, and therefore the muscles will not be able to contract as forcefully or work as hard, and fatigue will occur. So then we talk about creatine phosphate, and creatine phosphate helps aid muscular contraction when exercising. So the role of creatine phosphate is to rebuild ATP so that it can be used for energy in order to provide muscular contraction. When exercising, PT decreases. This therefore means that there are less molecules to rebuild ATP for energy, so less energy is readily available to the body, so obviously it will fatigue. An example of when creatine phosphate levels within the body would decrease would be during a netball game, when sprinting as fast as possible to receive the ball. So when we exercise over a long period of time, our glycogen stores are broken down to produce hydrogen ions. So within the body, oxygen is used for energy production, and therefore oxygen levels will deplete. If there isn't enough oxygen within the body and therefore readily available to the body for energy production, then hydrogen ion concentration within the blood increases and the blood will become more acidic. The acidity of blood means cell functioning, as well as cell signals from brain to muscles can't happen efficiently, and this may make the legs feel heavy and therefore starts to slow the athlete down, so it will affect performance. An example of where hydrogen concentration increases due to oxygen levels decreasing within the body over time would be a 1,500 metre runner. So calcium. So calcium is needed within the body to help provide muscular contraction. When exercising, calcium ion stores will decrease over time. This is in relation to the sliding filament theory. So calcium is needed within this theory as calcium changes the shape of the troponin and the tropomyosin, which provides movement for them to attach to the myosin hairs. So the myosin hairs will then attach to actin, pulling them towards the sarcomere so that muscular contraction can take place. And without calcium, this process could not take place and muscular contraction would not occur. Therefore, as muscular contraction occurs during exercise, calcium ions will decrease. It will become a point when calcium stores will become so low as it takes time for calcium stores to rebuild up again, and therefore the muscles will not be able to contract as fast and efficiently, so performance will drop. An example when calcium ion levels would decrease would be during a football game. A footballer's calcium ion levels will gradually decrease, in which the footballer will not be able to run as fast and effectively. Due to exercising, lactate levels increase due to a build-up of lactic acid being a byproduct of exercise. Lactate levels are very high during anaerobic exercise. This is because ATP levels are very low due to being used up, so lactate is formed in larger quantities. High lactate levels therefore mean that the body will be working anaerobically, in which build-up of lactic acid causes muscular cramp / pain and fatigue. A sport in which a build-up of lactic acid may increase a lot is a 200-meter sprinter. The sprinter will go into an anaerobic state, energy being provided from the anaerobic lactic system, in which a build-up of lactic acid will occur within the muscles, a byproduct of anaerobic respiration. The food in which we eat provides us with energy. They are categorised into 3 groups: fats, proteins and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are found in foods such as pasta, bread, rice. They have a 4-calorie value. The smallest unit of carbohydrate is glucose. They are 45 to 50% of our daily intake and should come from foods such as pasta, rice and bread. They also are where our main energy production comes from. Secondly, we have proteins, in which they have a 4-calorie value once again, and they're a secondary energy source after carbohydrates, though they are not advisable to be used for energy as they provide structure for organ systems. Their main role is providing rebuilding of muscle. Thirdly, we have fats, in which they have a 7-calorie value and provide insulation and protection of organs and can be stored and used for a last resort for energy production if all carbohydrates are used up. Carbohydrates are the main energy source, in which the body uses stores of carbohydrates, known as glycogen stores, for energy when we first begin to exercise. Carbohydrates are stored as glycogen within the body and then stored within the liver, known as glucose. After a long period of exercising, glucose and glycogen stores will deplete as they are fed into the bloodstream to provide energy for muscular contraction, and the body will have to resort to fat stores in order to provide energy for the body. For fats to be broken down to be used as energy through the metabolism, for fats to be present in order to do so, for fats to be broken down to be used as energy, you need oxygen present for this to actually happen. Therefore, as intensity of exercise increases, carbohydrate and glycogen stores will deplete, meaning the body will rely on the breakdown of fats for energy. However, if oxygen is not present, then this process will not be able to occur and the body will go into an anaerobic state. Lactic acid builds up as a byproduct of anaerobic respiration, in which muscle cramp and fatigue will occur within the body. An example when the body may use all carbohydrates up and then rely on fat stores for energy would be during a marathon race. So it is said heat stress from the environment can be detrimental to sporting performance, challenging the limits of the human cardiovascular system, temperature regulation, altering body fluid balance. When exercising, body temperature will increase due to muscular contraction, letting off heat within the body along with other chemical reactions. The body therefore needs evaporative cooling to take place in order to get the body back down to its normal temperature again. All chemical reactions work best at a normal body temperature. This is around normally like 37 degrees. So if the body temperature increases, the muscles and the cardiovascular system will not be able to work so efficiently. Therefore, it's very important to ensure you've drunk plenty of water before taking part within your sport and during. Many athletes will drink cold fluids when exercising to maintain their core temperature. Hydration and fluid levels will drop when exercising, so this is normally due to like sweating and an increase in the body temperature. When we lose fluids through sweating, we lose electrolytes as well, in particular sodium. As exercise is prolonged, more electrolytes are lost, in which an athlete will start to feel very weak and fatigued. Electrolytes are vital to the body and can be replaced through like sports drinks that contain them. In some cases, loss of too much fluid can lead to dehydration, which will affect aerobic performance. Some side effects of dehydration are dizziness, headaches, and then limited capability to even perform efficiently or well. So now we go on to recovery. So recovery, however, involves the returning of the body to the state it was before exercise so that all the systems can return to homeostasis. So activities key for recovery would be food, nutrition, rest, sleep. A process which will take place after exercise in order to aid recovery is called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, and it can be known as EPOC. And this is where the body is provided with additional oxygen after exercise in order to repay back the oxygen lost during exercise. This normally occurs by deep, fast breathing after a race. So if you get this after a race, this is why, because you're trying to get the oxygen back into your body to repay what you've lost. So this process will happen immediately, first starting off with a fast component of EPOC as shown on this image. Here. So that one there. And this process takes 2 to 3 minutes, in which it uses 1 to 4 litres of oxygen to do so. Additional oxygen allows resynthesis of all ATP and PC, so that's adrenaline triphosphate and creatine phosphate, to occur, as well as the replenishment of myoglobin. 50% of creatine phosphate stores are resynthesized within the first 30 seconds, but all within 2 to 3 minutes. This therefore eliminates 2 factors of fatigue after exercise. After this process will take place, then the slow component occurs, in which this process can take up to hours. So if I quickly show you. So it's this part here. So this process basically aids the removal of lactic acid. What happens is lactic acid is converted back into pyruvic acid, and then this is converted back into the acetyl coenzyme A. This is then fed into the Krebs cycle, in which 65% of it will be converted into carbon dioxide and water, 20% glycogen and 5% glucose and 10% protein. Water is a base for metabolism for all processes to occur, therefore this is beneficial, as well as glycogen stores being replenished so they can be used for energy when needed. Half of the amount of lactic acid within the body is removed within the first 15 minutes of this process. Also, it provides maintenance of minute ventilation and circulation. Breathing rate just after exercise will remain quite fast, so therefore increase oxygen delivery to working muscles and provide removal of carbon dioxide too, then becomes quite gradual to bring the body back to its normal state, like breathing rate and heart rate. Also, EPOC slow component helps maintain body temperature. When exercising, the amount of heat we produce is a lot higher than the amount of heat we use during exercise. So after exercise, the temperature needs to remain elevated for a gradual decrease. If the body temperature was to suddenly drop, this would be a shock to our system, and then chemical reactions and our metabolism won't be able to work so efficiently. An example of when fast component EPOC would come into place would be just after a heavy set of barbell squats, in which the weightlifter would their breathing rate would increase to provide the body with that additional oxygen they need, so that they can then pay back the oxygen debt and then perform a heavy set once again within the next 2 to 3 minutes. The 3 athletes I have chosen to speak about now are a 100-metre sprinter, a netball player and a marathon runner. So first of all, we'll go and talk about the sprinter. So when a 100-metre sprinter performs, the body will be working so hard that the demands for oxygen within the body will not be able to be met, and therefore the body will go into an anaerobic state due to the high intensity that the athlete is working at. The anaerobic pathway means that there is limited ATP, so it takes time to make ATP, and with this race only lasting up to 11 to 15 seconds, the body won't have time to make it. If there is limited ATP, this means there will be less energy for the athlete's muscles to contract, so the muscles may become tired, and the pace at which the runner is running may decrease. The body will rely on the ATP/PC system, though, to provide energy for muscular contraction when working anaerobically. Lactate levels will also increase due to lactic acid being formed within larger quantities, as there is limited ATP available to the body for energy. The buildup of lactic acid can cause muscular pain and cramp, which is uncomfortable for the athlete and can affect their ability of performance. During this race, due to depletion of glycogen stores, which will happen very quickly due to the high intensity of exercise. Ways in which athletes can minimise the amount of oxygen debt that occurs is by doing a structured warm-up, including stretches and a pulse raiser. This will increase their breathing rate and their tidal volume, in which more oxygen can be brought into the body. Therefore, more oxygen will already be readily available for the body in order for muscular contraction. Heart rate will also increase due to an increased blood flow to muscles to provide efficient oxygen delivery. If oxygen is already present within the body, this will decrease the time the body has to work anaerobically, and therefore lactate levels won't increase as much, which can cause muscular cramp and fatigue. Also, a cool down should take place after exercise, as this will lower the heart rate as well as reducing breathing rate back to normal. This means oxygen can be brought back into the body again, though EPOC slow component will remove any other lactic acid which may cause fatigue or muscle cramp and convert it into useful products such as water glycogen, which can aid the recovery process. However, this will take more time. This will take up to 2 hours. Carbon dioxide is also produced, in which it can be then exhaled to provide more space for oxygen to be brought into the body. Another way in which an athlete can improve the amount of muscular fatigue is through plyometric and sprinting training. It is said within a website that is stated on my PowerPoint that the research has shown that sprint training improves neuromuscular capacity to produce force and power, which can improve running economy and delay muscle fatigue. Plyometric training includes hopping, bouncing and jumping exercise, which are repeatedly done. These movements are eccentric, lengthening and concentric, shortening, which increase the muscle's rate of force and the amount of power it can exert. When both together, concentric immediately followed by eccentric, you gain the most out of this type of training in order to prevent fatigue happening so quick. An example of some sprint plyometric training that can be done is 6 by 100 meters at very high speed with 3 to 4 minute rest between sets. Then 8 to 10 of 50 meter sprints at very top speed with 3 to 4 minute rest between sets, and then 2 sets of 10 reps of bleeper hops, squat jumps and box jumps with full recovery between sets. The sprinter should eat meals consisting of very high protein, carbohydrates and low fat. This should be 30 minutes prior to exercise in order to replenish glycogen stores and fat stores and to provide the building blocks for amino acids in order to repair teared muscular tissue that has occurred during exercise. So then we have a netball player which will start to perform aerobically at steady state. As the netball game goes on, the demands for oxygen within the body will increase. Therefore, breathing rate, heart rate will increase to keep up with the demands. As this process occurs, oxygen levels will deplete. A netball game also lasts for like 60 minutes, so sorry, my PowerPoint is not going down. So over the depletion, over that time, obviously oxygen levels will deplete, and obviously the muscles within the netball player are not going to be able to contract so efficiently. Also, due to more oxygen being used, there will also be more carbon dioxide within the body, made as a byproduct, and this will affect the pH, making the blood more acidic, so chemical reactions won't be able to work as efficiently, and therefore, as well as cell functioning, so the netball may become less aware of their surroundings. So like, for example, defending might not be so good. If a netball player was to play for around 35 to 40 minutes, her oxygen levels are going to be quite low, so then when she might go to sprint for the ball, she might not receive it. Somebody might go in front of her. Also, because of how long she's been training, if she goes to sprint for that ball, because of her oxygen levels being low, she might go into an anaerobic state in which lactate levels will then increase, and muscular cramp and fatigue due to this may occur due to the buildup of lactic acid. Creatine phosphate also rebuilds ATP so that it can be used for energy. As exercise is prolonged, creatine phosphate levels will decrease, meaning less ATP can be made, and therefore the netballer's performance will decrease, as the muscles won't be able to work as hard and as contract as forcefully. So ATP will provide energy for the netballer for a longer period of time than the sprinter, as the netballer will provide more time for the ATP to be rebuilt.